Meta is building an app where you bet on real-world events, and the winner gets decided by a chatbot. Meta is building an app where you bet on real-world events, and the winner gets decided by a chatbot. Not a human reviewer. Not a panel. Llama, Meta's own AI model, makes the final call on whether your bet won or lost, in real time, with no appeal process and no human checking its work. It's called Arena. It's been a top priority project inside Meta since this spring. And by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why Wall Street looked at this and immediately sold off DraftKings and Robinhood stock the same week the story broke. So let's get into how a betting product with no actual money in it somehow became one of the scariest announcements in tech this year. Prediction markets are basically a financial product wearing a fun hat. You bet on whether something will happen. Will this movie get a good Rotten Tomatoes score? Will the Fed cut rates? Will a specific country take a specific military action by a specific date? If you're right, you get a payout. If you're wrong, you lose your stake. Two platforms currently dominate this space. Kalshi, which is regulated and works directly with US financial regulators. And Polymarket, which runs on crypto and operates in more of a legal gray zone depending on where you live. Together, those two platforms processed more than $130 billion in trades in just the first half of 2026. Kalshi alone hit a $22 billion valuation in May, double what it was worth 6 months earlier. The total volume across prediction markets hit almost $30 billion in a single month recently, which is a 588% jump from the same time the year before. This is not a niche hobby anymore. This is a real financial sector growing at a pace that makes most of Wall Street nervous. So Mark Zuckerberg looked at that growth curve and decided Meta needed in. Arena is the internal codename. It's being built as a completely standalone app, separate from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Meta has nearly 3 billion daily users across its platforms, and the entire strategy here is to funnel a slice of that audience into a brand new product the same way TikTok funneled its audience into TikTok Shop. Here's the twist that makes Arena different from everything else in this space. At launch, there's no real money. You bet with points. A video game-style currency. Which sounds almost pointless until you realize what it actually does for Meta legally. Real money betting platforms have to deal with state gambling licenses, federal commodity regulators, and increasingly hostile state lawsuits. By launching with fake currency, Meta sidesteps basically all of that regulatory friction on day one. Sources have said real money betting isn't off the table for later. Which means the play money version isn't the actual business model. It's the legal Trojan horse that gets the product onto millions of phones before the harder regulatory conversation even starts. Now here's the part of this story that should actually worry you, and it's not the gambling angle. Every other major prediction market has built a system specifically to answer one brutal technical question: who decides if a bet actually won? It's called the oracle problem. Polymarket solves it with something called an optimistic oracle. A proposer posts what they believe the outcome was, backed by a financial bond, then a 2-hour window opens where anyone can dispute it, and contested calls escalate to a decentralized community vote. Kalshi solves it with actual human review committees who make the final call on disputed outcomes. Both systems exist because getting this wrong, even occasionally, means real money gets paid out incorrectly to the wrong people. Arena throws all of that out. According to internal documents reviewed by NPR, Llama, Meta's own large language model, will resolve markets directly. No human review. No challenge window. No appeal. The AI looks at a yes or no question, decides what happened, and that's final. Let that sit for a second, because this is the actual story. Large language models like Llama don't work by checking a verified database of facts. They work by predicting the most statistically likely next word based on patterns in their training data. Researchers in this field describe hallucination, the AI confidently stating something false, as a structural property of how these models generate language, not a bug you can simply patch out. So now picture a market on Arena asking, did a particular ceasefire actually hold through the weekend? Or, did a specific celebrity actually confirm a breakup? Or, did a particular election result get certified by a particular date? These are exactly the kinds of ambiguous, fast-moving, contested news events where even professional journalists sometimes get it wrong in the first few hours. Llama is going to be asked to make a binary call on these in near real time, with money or points riding on the answer, and nobody gets to challenge it. If you've ever asked any chatbot a question and gotten a confidently wrong answer, you already know exactly how this goes. And it's not just the resolution side where Llama is doing the heavy lifting. According to the same internal documents, the AI is also responsible for generating the actual betting questions in the first place, automatically pulling from trending topics across the internet, and then making personalized market recommendations to individual users based on what it thinks they'll want to bet on. So the same model is choosing what you bet on, suggesting bets it thinks you specifically will engage with, and then deciding whether you won. That's not three separate checks and balances. That's one system controlling the entire loop from question to payout, with no independent party anywhere in the process. And it gets stranger, because the system creates its own attack vector. If an AI is the one deciding whether something happened, then the incentive shifts. Instead of just betting on reality, you can try to manipulate what the AI thinks reality is. Flooding social media with fake claims, doctored screenshots, and coordinated misinformation right before a resolution deadline becomes a viable strategy if it can nudge Llama's judgment in your favor. Every existing prediction market already deals with insider trading risk. Arena adds an entirely new category of exploit that doesn't exist anywhere else: manipulating the AI judge itself. This is the part of the story that connects directly back to the infrastructure obsession this channel has. Meta isn't just launching a betting app. They're proposing to use a known unreliable AI system as the single source of truth for financial outcomes, at scale, with no human safety net, because removing that safety net is cheaper and faster to build. The timing of all this matters too. Meta announced Arena on June 23, 2026. That same exact day, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission filed its 9th state lawsuit in this space, this one against Kentucky, which had tried to shut down Polymarket, Kalshi, Coinbase, Robinhood, and Webull entirely and slap a 14.25% tax on them. 9 state lawsuits in one fight is genuinely a lot. It tells you the legal status of this entire industry is still being actively fought over state by state, with no settled national answer yet. The CFTC also has a proposed federal rule sitting open for public comment right now defining what kinds of prediction markets are even legal, with that comment period closing in late July. Whatever gets decided in that rulemaking process is going to shape what Meta is even allowed to build, assuming Arena makes it to a public launch at all. Meanwhile, in Europe, the regulatory response has been even more direct. Germany, Belgium, Spain, France, Italy, and the Netherlands have all announced plans to target unlicensed prediction market platforms operating in their countries. Spain temporarily blocked both Polymarket and Kalshi outright last month. So Meta isn't just walking into one fight in the US. It's walking into a fragmented, country-by-country regulatory minefield where the rules of the road are different depending on which border you're standing on, and most of those rules are actively being rewritten as we speak. Meta is walking directly into the middle of an active legal war between states and federal regulators over whether this entire industry is gambling or investing. Senator Richard Blumenthal responded to the Arena news immediately, saying Meta copied slot machine mechanics to make Instagram addictive, and now Zuckerberg is doing the same thing to financial betting. He's pushing legislation called the Prediction Markets Security and Integrity Act specifically in response to this, alongside the Kids Online Safety Act, which gives you a sense of how this is being framed politically. Not as fintech innovation. As another addictive product from a company that's already facing litigation over addictive design in its existing apps. There's also a wild detail buried in all of this that tells you how seriously regulators are already taking the integrity risk in this entire sector. Earlier this year, a US Army soldier with access to classified military information allegedly won more than $400,000 by placing bets on Polymarket tied to a real military operation he had inside knowledge of. That's insider trading, just with geopolitics instead of stocks. The House Oversight Committee opened a probe into how these platforms catch that kind of abuse. And that's the environment Meta is choosing to enter, with a resolution system that has fewer safeguards than the platforms already under federal scrutiny, not more. So why is Meta doing this at all? Because the company has spent years chasing the next platform shift and missing most of them. The metaverse pivot cost them tens of billions and never found a mainstream audience. Their early AI chatbot efforts mostly got absorbed into features nobody specifically asked for. Prediction markets are the rare case where a massive cultural trend is happening in real time. The market is still young enough to grab share in, and Meta has the one thing that actually matters here: an audience bigger than every other platform in this space combined. If even a small percentage of 3 billion users download Arena, it instantly becomes one of the largest prediction markets on Earth, regardless of whether the product itself is actually good. That's the same playbook Meta has used for Instagram Reels, for WhatsApp, for basically every acquisition and clone in its history. Distribution wins. Quality is optional. Fix it later, or don't. Here's the timeline as it stands right now. The app is still in internal testing. No public release date has been announced. NYT and NPR sources both say there's a real chance this entire project gets killed before the public ever sees it, which has happened to Meta experimental projects before, including a 2020 app called Forecast that did something similar and got shut down 2 years later because manually curating questions was too operationally expensive. Arena is explicitly described internally as a rebuild of that same failed idea, just with AI doing the work humans used to do manually. Whether that AI can actually do that job reliably, with real financial consequences riding on every answer, is a question Meta seems prepared to find out by simply shipping the product and watching what happens. Rise and Ruin will be watching the same way.